Hi everyone, this is Laura Hammock from the Marble Jar channel, and in today's video I'll share my summary and takeaways from Susan Cain's newest book, Bittersweet: How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole. I am a Susan Cain fan. I've recommended her book Quiet to countless people. Quiet was her anthem to the unsung introverts among us, and now she's at it again, this time for the melancholics. In her book Bittersweet, she heralds those of us who cry at commercials, get goosebumps multiple times a day, and feel frequently both deep sorrow as well as deep awe. I instinctively knew that she was describing me in the introduction, but I had no idea how much until I took her quiz and scored off the charts. I don't consider myself a sad person at all, but I am definitely what she terms a happy melancholic, a phrase the author uses to describe herself as well. So I gave the quiz to a bunch of my friends and family, and it turns out there must be a genetic component. I remember listening to the story of the little drummer boy on the radio when I was about 12, and then finding that all 4 members of my family had retreated to different rooms in the house for a quiet boohoo. My brother and I even now routinely send each other videos just to make each other cry. So enough about me. I simply love the idea that there are a bunch of us wandering around who are so easily touched by sorrow and longing of the world. So to define bittersweet, I think it's useful to think about the 4 humors that the Greeks used to describe temperaments: sanguine or happy, melancholic or sad, choleric or angry, and phlegmatic or calm. So she doesn't go into this much, but with each of these tendencies, there's a spectrum between healthy and unhealthy. And at its healthiest, the melancholic temperament feels sorrow deeply, but also experiences love and gratitude acutely. She contends that there's no way to pull these pairings apart: love, loss, light, darkness, longing, disappointment, birth, and death. Those with a bittersweet temperament are keenly aware of the passage of time, and as a result of their sadness, have a felt understanding of what matters most. At their best, they can transmute those feelings into expressive art, poetry, music, and invention as a sublime response to emotional pain. And they can commune with others in those universal feelings of loss and compassion and ultimately connection. Okay, so here are some of my takeaways from the book. The U.S. rewards happy, angry types. The author states that the United States, where I live, is not super hospitable to the melancholic. It is much more comfortable with the forward-leaning style of happy and angry types. Sadness tends to make us look backward in a way that does not comport with capitalistic tendencies. She has a whole interesting passage about the history from Calvinism through the prosperity gospel that frowns upon grief and sorrow and is impatient for people to get back to being upbeat and productive. There are also very few rituals in American culture to memorialize and celebrate those we have lost. It's all onward and upward. Next, longing is normal and healthy. Of course it is, but somehow we have lost sight of this. Yearning for ideal love, an ideal family, a perfect life, this is all super normal. We have little sadnesses every day to remind us that reality doesn't always comport with our wants, but sadness is ultimately the only way to move through those realizations. Without acknowledging that yearning and processing that sadness, you simply push down your desires and continue to live in a kind of detached fantasy world. Feeling sad makes you feel whole. People on the healthy end of the melancholy spectrum, contrary to popular belief, are not sad all the time. In fact, on balance, those folks have a greater access to bliss, ecstasy, and wholehearted gratitude. They have a better sense of what matters, and they can infuse their lives with more meaning as a result. They have closer and more genuine relationships, and they have the ability to connect more easily with others, to commune with their sorrow or their joy. Their entire range of emotions is just wider. The Buddhist idea of non-attachment is kind of BS. So I've never found a good explanation of this, but this book comes pretty close. I get the idea that if you're not attached to things or people, you mourn them less. But as a trained psychotherapist, this smacks of avoidant attachment. The solution to grief is not protecting yourself from ever feeling it by never giving your heart away. It is learning to move through it and make meaning from the experience afterwards. She didn't precisely say this, but that's what I took away. Sadness can generate creativity. The ability to feel sadness is positively correlated with creative output. In fact, the author starts this journey with a question about why she is drawn to sad music. She also mentions here that depression is a bleak, dark hole and does not generate creativity. So again, this is on the healthy side of melancholy. So I know someone who recently went through an existential crisis, and what has brought her back was creativity, journaling, collecting experiences, fashion, beauty, art. All of these pursuits and connecting with others have pulled her back from her anxiety and dread. The learning that she brought out of that was that transience is majestic. Life is transient. Our experiences are all transient. Our loves are transient. We don't always live life holding this in mind, but when we realize how fleeting it all is, we can be a little overwhelmed. I lived in Japan for 2 years where there's an annual celebration when the cherry blossoms bloom. Cherry blossoms are so delicate and ephemeral that they only last for a handful of days. And so the Japanese throng into the parks to eat picnic food and drink under the blossoms to celebrate the transience of the sakura, the cherry blossoms of beauty and of life. And it's freaking awesome, and I can't imagine it ever happening here in the States. Good grief. Loss is gut-wrenching. You can't prescribe how to do it right, but those who heal well embrace certain aspects of the process. Acknowledging your feelings, don't try to control or avoid them, make time to feel the feelings, expect occasionally to be overwhelmed, give yourself grace, catch yourself when you're being self-critical, and these last two are the upward part of the curve, allow your grief to clarify what matters to you, and then take action to bring more of that into your life. And allow grief to change you. You don't get over loss, you incorporate it into who you are so that you move forward changed, weightier, wiser, and sometimes a little more solemn, but also grateful, open, and compassionate. Allow grief to shape you. How to be more melancholic. Okay, so she doesn't put it quite like that, but I think it's required to be an authentic, compassionate human being. When I work with couples, I frequently have to work on feelings of sadness with the partner who struggles with empathy. For them to actually feel what their partner is feeling, which is basically what empathy is, they have to be able to easily access their own sorrow or their own sadness. And one thing is, you can't do it if you feel superior. Superiority allows you to distance yourself and feel better than others, and it is the enemy of empathy. And there are lots of ways to cultivate your own melancholy. Listen to sad music. Practice the loving kindness meditation. Notice and grieve impermanence in nature. Think about death. Read about the experiences of others, both fictional and memoir. But most of all, allow yourself to wallow in it. Allow yourself to go through it frequently. One of my very favorite quotes was by Melinda French Gates, and paraphrased is something like, "I spend time every day allowing my heart to break." Now, she is someone who has both the melancholy and the means to turn her compassion and loss into healing and better welfare for millions of people. Not all of us have that ability, but we can certainly all turn our loss into something that matters. So I don't need to tell you that I loved the book and I highly recommend it. It is an easy read. It is full of stories and examples. I read a whole lot, but there are some books that cut right to the heart of identity or meaning for me, and this one falls into that category. I'd love to know what you think. Comments are always appreciated, and thanks for watching.